بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. We stopped last week that when a salah is made out of its time, that there are Shaf'i rules, there's Sharia rules that makes it legitimate for you to make it out of its time. There are Sharia rules that makes it legitimate for you to make it out of its time. And the first of that we said was if a person were to be asleep and they sleep through the waqt. The Sharia makes it permissible for you to make that salah afterwards, and there's no harm, there's no sin on you. And for that we quoted the hadith of the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, رفع القلم عن ثلاثة عن النائم حتى يستيقظ وعن الصبي حتى يحتلم وعن المجنون حتى يفيق. That three people will not be held responsible for their actions, and that is a person that sleeps until he wakes up, or a person that is a young child until they become baligh, or a person that has lost their sanity until they become sane. Those three people are not going to be held responsible. The next group of people that we spoke about, the next group of people that we spoke about on what it is permissible is a person that has become unconscious. I'm having a problem again with this social media. The next person is a person that became unconscious, and the same hadith applies until they gain their consciousness. Legitimately by Sharia, you are not responsible for what has happened. The next group of people is those who have genuinely forgotten. The Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, رُفِعَ عَنْ أُمَّتِي الْخَطَأُ وَالنِّسْيَانُ وَمَا اسْتُكْرِهُ عَلَيْهِ. That my ummah will not be held responsible for if they forget or if they make a mistake, and if they forget and what they are forced to into. So again, first one we've said, if you oversleep, legitimately you are safe. By legitimately, I mean by Sharia. Second one is that the person is unconscious. And the third one is that the person had genuinely forgotten. We come to the fourth category that we did not do last week, that gives you a legitimate reason, and that is if you are in jihad. In jihad. The person is busy, they're busy with jihad, and we're talking about jihad fi sabilillah. Jihad in the holy war, and they have been kept busy with that war, and it was unable for the person through all means that the stride cannot make salah. The war is at its height. So there goes the waqt, didn't make salah. So therefore, that person is legitimately allowed to make that salah when such a situation allows it. Right? And the hadith that deals with that, عن جابر رضي الله عنه أن عمر رضي الله عنه جاء يوم الخندق بعدما غربت الشمس فجعل يسب كفار قريش وقال يا رسول الله ما كنت أصلي العصر حتى كادت الشمس تغرب فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والله ما صليتها فقمنا إلى بطحان فتوضأ للصلاة وتوضأنا فصلى العصر بعدما غربت الشمس ثم صلى بعدها المغرب. So the hadith from the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam is a hadith that is in Sahih Al-Bukhari. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu when they were in the Battle of the Trench, and that was a hectic battle, a very hectic. And after the sun had set, he is just speaking ill of the kuffar and how they delayed him now for salah. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, I couldn't even make Salatul Asr. And there the sun is gone already. So the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam told him, Wallahi, I could also not make Salah for Asr. So therefore, they took wudu and they made Salah for Asr, and after that they made Salah for Maghrib because it was Maghrib already. Right? So that is a hadith in terms of jihad. Another one that deals with that is a hadith that is narrated by At-Tirmidhi wa Nisa'i عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنهم أن المشركين شغلوا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يوم الخندق عن 4 صلوات حتى ذهب من الليل ما شاء فأمر بلالا فأذن ثم أقام فصلى الظهر ثم أقام فصلى العصر ثم أقام فصلى المغرب ثم أقام فصلى العشاء. Narrated by Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu in the Battle of the Trench, that the mushrikeen had kept the Nabi alayhi salam, the idolaters, had kept the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam so busy that day. And again I say the Battle of the Trench, Ghazwatul Khandaq, was one of the most hectic battles that the Sahaba had been in. So they had kept the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam busy from performing 4 salahs, until it became night. So the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam ordered Bilal, and he made the adhan, and they stood up and they made Salatul Dhuhr. Then again he made the adhan and then Iqamah. And then he made the Iqamah again, and they made Salah for Asr immediately thereafter. ثُمَّ أَقَامَ فَصَلَّى الْمَغْرِبِ. And then they made the Iqamah and they made Salah for Maghrib. ثُمَّ أَقَامَ فَصَلَّى الْعِشَاءِ. And then they did the Iqamah and then they made Salah for Isha. So the ulama takes from that if you are in jihad, then you have a legitimate reason, if there is no other way out, that it is permissible for you to make the salah afterwards. That now deals with all of that. Now we come to the adhan. And before we come to the adhan, I want to give you a background of what just recently happened at the Supreme Court of Appeal in terms of the adhan, so that one understands the adhan when we do it, what is the position of the adhan, and you know what South African law now says about the adhan. Because we've been too many times, we've been told that the adhan has been, and it's termed noise nuisance. So the Supreme Court of Appeal was approached by a madrasa called Ta'alimuddin Islamic Institute in Durban, because this Mr. Elroy, he went to the KwaZulu-Natal division of the High Court in Durban, and they said, yeah, no, there can be no adhan. Adhan must be stopped. So they went to the Supreme Court of Appeal. And it's very interesting on how the Supreme Court of Appeal looked at this. Looking at the fact that Mr. Elroy lives 20 meters from the madrasa in Isipingo, KwaZulu-Natal, the madrasa itself, or the institute, has a madrasa, and it has a masjid, and the students that's in the madrasa, they live on the premises, right? So because it has a masjid, it has 5 salah. And because it has 5 salah, it means there's 5 times adhan for the day. So from the masjid, and we do this from a communal point of view also when people complain. We first see if we can help solve the problem. So for example, in Bayview, when a woman complained, we turned the speakers the other way, and then khalas, problem solved. So here the community of this masjid, the people also, went to the person, Mr. Elroy, and told him, listen, can we work out something? He says, I'm not interested. Islam is evil. We want all Muslims out of Isipingo. And he was dead up against Islam. Wanted Islam out of the way. Then came a second time by the municipality to try and achieve some kind of mediation between them. Again, the man refused. It didn't work, and that failed. A third mediation was then tried by the South African Human Rights Council. And with the South African Human Rights Council, that story also failed. So now, we're sitting with a problem. So it went now to the Supreme Court. When we speak about religious freedom in South Africa, the Supreme Court of Appeal said freedom of religion in South Africa is not complete freedom. It means that you must live with other people of other religions. There must be coexistence. And the adhan in itself is not a long party kind of thing that goes on through the night. And on average, the adhan is 3 minutes. So therefore, Mr. Elroy's approach to the adhan was not one of a nuisance in terms of the sound, but it was more, he is Islamophobic. So the judge on that level also said that while you have religious freedom, it means also that you must have religious tolerance. And that people that living with one another in a diverse South Africa like we find ourselves must be ready to also overlook and live with your neighbor who is Muslim, non-Muslim, whatever, Christian, and so on, that you must live with them. And that everything that Mr. Elroy did was more anti-Islamic. That he had a problem with the religion of Islam, and on the basis of that, we now have a precedent. The precedent is that the Supreme Court of Appeal has said there is nothing wrong with the adhan. Nothing wrong with the adhan that we are now going to use throughout South Africa, because of this precedent that has been set. So let's go to the adhan. When we speak about the adhan, then we must first understand what is the definition of the adhan. And the ulama says the adhan is the announcement of the waqt that has started. The waqt that has started, and it has specific words to it. You cannot come up with an adhan with implementing your own words or inserting your own words. So it has specific words that has been established by the sunnah of the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The adhan is seen as a symbol of Islam, a symbol of the many symbols of Islam, and it shows out Islam. It is a da'wah to all, a calling to all. It consists of takbir, meaning Allahu Akbar, tawheed, meaning la ilaha illallah, and it is a call to piety and success. That is the definition of the adhan. the definition. What is the hukum of the adhan? The hukum of the adhan by the Shafi'iyya and by the Hanafiyya, that it is sunnah mu'akkadah. It is sunnah. Now what does sunnah mu'akkadah mean for us? Sunnah mu'akkadah means that you get rewarded for doing it and you are rebuked for leaving it off. Now this is a bad thing you did. It's a sunnah mu'akkadah, meaning that you get rewarded for doing it and you get rebuked for leaving it off. That is by Al-Imam Shaf'i and Al-Imam Abu Hanifa. Al-Imam, and that they say is for a jama'ah, a group of people, and for individuals. Al-Imam Malik says, yes, it is a sunnah mu'akkadah, but only on the jama'ah and not individuals. Right? Don't forget that we said that we do all of the madhahib so that we can understand that there are differences of opinion in our deen. Where does this all come from? How was the adhan established? When the Muslimin increased in numbers, when the numbers increased, they were looking for a way to, how are we going to call people for salah? How are people going to know that the time for salah is in? So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided them to the adhan that we have today. What is the hadith that deals with that? And Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Abd Rabbu قال لما أمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بالناقوس ليضرب به الناس في الجمع للصلاة. Says when the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was told to use a bell to call people for salah, it was something that was not attractive to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam because it was already done by the Nasara. They used a bell. And he says, so I fell asleep and appeared to me a man carrying a bell. A man carrying a bell appeared in front of me. So I approached him in my sleep and I said, don't you want to sell this bell to me? And he asked me, now what are you going to do with the bell? And I said, we want to use it to call people for salah. And this person then said, let me tell you something better than that. And he said, okay, go ahead. And in his dream, the person said, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. Then there was a pause. The man waited for a while. And then he said, this is all in his dream, that when you're going to stand to make salah, then you say the following. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala falah, Qad qamatis salatu, Qad qamatis salah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. He says, the next morning when I woke up, I went to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, and I told the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam about this dream that I had, and the Nabi alayhi salam said, Innaha la ru'ya haqq, insha'Allah. This is a true vision that you've had. Now go to Bilal, give him the words because his voice is louder than what you are. And Bilal then stood up and he made the adhan. And when he made it, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu heard it, and he came rushing out of his house, and he says to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ بِالْحَقِّ لَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ مِثْلُ الَّذِي رَأَى. I have seen the same thing that he has seen. I have seen. And the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, now in a dream, and the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, فَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدِ. And to Allah is praise and thanks. And that is how the adhan started. And we will leave it at that for this week, inshallah ta'ala. And next week we will go with the greatness of the adhan, how the different ways of doing adhan, and the adab of the adhan, inshallah ta'ala. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Any questions?